Today's podcast is a part of a series about the members of a network that I am a part of called Women Execs on Boards. All of the women in this series have completed programs through the Harvard Business School to prepare them for corporate governance. I wanted to tell their stories because I'm so inspired by the women who are in this network. They are high-level, high-profile women, but when you look behind the scenes, you see that they have worked very hard to get to where they are. They've been through so many different trials, traumas, and they've just kept getting back up and climbing and working hard to get to the top. And the really amazing thing is that they're leaving the ladder down and reaching back down in the organizations to pull up other women and men into leadership positions. And so I can't wait for you to hear their story. I hope you enjoy this podcast series. Hello, welcome to Real Life, Real Leaders. I'm Bonnie Hageman, I'm your host, and today we have a guest from Brazil, Mônica Orcioli. Mônica has had an amazing career so far, and I'm so excited for you to hear her story. But just to give you a little bit about her, she is the Dean of the University of Anhembi. She is the Dean of the University of Anhembi, Morambi, and also a second one, San Judas. So she's actually the dean of two universities she is actually the dean of two universities. She's over 100,000 plus students, and they are the university that's rated #1 in Brazil. And so welcome to the program, Mônica.
Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks a lot for inviting me. It's an honor to have the opportunity to share my experience with all the people that are listening to us and to tell real life stories, no?
Yes, exactly. Real life, real leaders. Yes, so you've had such an amazing career. I mean, I just look at your bio on LinkedIn and it blows me away. And we actually know each other because we're both in the same network, Women Execs on Boards. And that is a group of women who've been prepared for board service at Harvard University. And so, lots of great connections and all that. Now, I just want to hear a little bit about you, though. Tell us about you, about where you came from. We talked about your last name a little bit before the program and the fact that you're actually have descendants from Italy. And so Italian in background, even though you've been in Brazil. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you chose your career.
Good, great. So I am Mônica. I am 54. I have two kids. Isabella is 26 and Bruno, 25 years old. I am the first of my entire family to have the opportunity to have a diploma to undergraduate in an university. My relatives, they came from Italy several decades ago. They came due to the difficult situation that they were living in their country of origin. And the next generations have to struggle a lot, to live here, to survive in Brazil, to build, like a decent life. So only by my generation, myself and my brother, we had the opportunity, to go to college. And luckily, we, used this opportunity to grow and to learn a lot, and also to contribute to our country. So I undergraduate I have a bachelor in marketing communication, and after that, I did a MBA at University of Pittsburgh, and after that, I never stopped studying, because I really do believe that education, especially in my country, in the Latin American region, is what we have to focus. It is what the government and the private entities have to provide of most valuable for the people to provide our welfare and our development.
Yes, it's so important. And tell us too, you know, in between there or early on, you were a foreign exchange student to America. So talk about that for a minute.
Yes, when I was in my second year at the university, at that time it was 86, I think. It was not that easy, you know, for a Brazilian to study abroad. No, we didn't have internet, we didn't have any like bureaus, exchange programs, bureaus. So I had to do everything by myself. So I went to the Consul of the United States. They provide me a short list of institutions where I could do, you know, my exchange program. And I was 18 to 19, so I went to Long Island University and to Farley Dickinson universities. I stayed 3 months in one, 3 months in another, to improve my English, but also this program was much focused on, you know, business, on marketing. So I had also the opportunity to deep dive my English skills also in the area where I was studying and developing. So
Oh,
it
that's
was
fantastic.
fantastic, no, because I also had the opportunity to live a little bit of New York life. I forgot to mention, but since 6 years ago, I study ballet. You know,
Oh, really?
yeah, I stopped for like 20 years between, you know, the start of my career when I started working after I had my kids, and around 5 years ago, I am back for dance. But you
Good for
know,
you.
living that time in New York was amazing, you know, to have the opportunity to see so many different things, other, you know, views, point of views, and so many things. So I think this opened my mind a lot for what I needed from my life.
I'm sure that's true. That's fantastic. Yes. So then you go back and you get your graduate degree, and then you start taking some positions that really culminated in well, obviously what you have today, but you also in business, you were country manager for several major brands. And so talk a little about how you chose which area, you know, of business to go into, and then your career path.
Yes. Well, when I went back to Brazil, and then I finished the university, I started to work in communications agencies. So it was, you know, was like one of the possible alternatives, because that time my country was passing for a very, very difficult economical situation. So when I started the university, I thought, you know, by entering a very good institution, I will have a lot of job offers. Then finally it will be a little bit more easy for me. But no, you know, during this period,
Yeah.
the economic situation in Brazil got very, very bad, and no offer, you know. Then you had to accept what you have.
Yes.
And finally, luckily, I had the opportunity to work for Young and Rubicon agency, and also for Ogilvy Mather group. So I started working in agencies, you know, in advertising, public relation agencies, and for me it was a very good experience, because by doing that, I also had the opportunity to meet new companies, new customers from many different areas, you know, for finance, for consumer goods, for service, for industrial goods. And I am a person that loves people, so I also got close to the people that are interacted in the as customers, and after like 4 to 5 years, I was working for another company that was belonged to Omnicom Group. He said, you know, I know that there is a position of marketing communications at DuPont, and I believe, you know, you are the perfect fit for that. because it's an area that works with textile fibers, is an area that's related to fashion. And I really believe I would like to recommend you for a headhunter. At that time, I didn't know what a headhunter was.
Well, that's a little scary if you don't know what it is.
And then I say, so if you I trusted in my colleague. I say, if you tell me that, let's go there. And then I did the interviews and I was accepted to be. I was 25 years old to be the marketing communication manager for South America of DuPont, to work with the textile brands, Lycra, Suplex, Tactile, all the performance fibers. And for me, it was, really a new world open, because it was a multinational company. I was responsible for a very important region. I had to luckily at this point, I had to fly to Manhattan to visit the agencies that
that's great.
At that time, my suppliers. We did a lot of things, a lot of projects, and it was, I really felt blessed. But it's not easy, because at that time I was only 25.
Right.
And
you still have a lot to learn.
There's a lot of at that time it was 94. So to have a woman in a leadership position, and worse than that, a very young woman in a leadership position, I really suffer a lot of constraints, of people avoiding to trust on my capabilities, on my advices, on my strategical thinking. It was really, really very tough.
Yes, and because, it's my understanding that, as bad as America has been about, not putting women in positions of leadership, South America was even harder for the women.
Much harder.
And so, that I wasn't even thinking about that when you said that, getting in that position at 25. So now you're in a leadership position, you're feeling discrimination from every side probably, but also the person who said that they thought you were perfect for that, was that a male?
Yes, it was a male.
That's the cool thing, right? Like that's one of the things the book that is about our network. So for the listeners, we have the book coming out in September of 2021 called The Courage to Advance, and we have 36 stories from our 190 member network. And we have more stories on the website, but in the book will be 36. And they consistently showed these women who are very high-level leaders who face discrimination. But they also consistently showed that they had men who championed them. And so, I never want people to forget that, that most of us who managed to be successful have had men who discriminated, but we've also had men who champion, and hopefully the men will choose to be champions going forward.
Yeah, it was men, and also by coincidence, because at that time we already had a dual report, so I reported for a leader in South America, but I also reported for a leader, a global marketing communication leader that was a woman, Elizabeth Browning.
A woman, but
and the majority of the marketing communication peers of our global network, mainly Americans and Europeans, they were women. And for me, the opportunity to have in an early stage of my life, starting 25 years old, women that I could look and see, this is possible. Probably not in a very broad spectrum in my country, in my region, but look to these amazing women, how independent, how self-conscious they are, how prestigious, you know, they really believe in what they do, you know, so they inspire me a lot.
That's
Their
wonderful.
independence, and I said that's what I want from my life, you know, that's really what I want, because I know it can be, and they also helped me a lot, really
Yeah,
helped me.
that's great. And so then you went on to some, just hit a couple of other highlights that led you to where you are now.
Yes, I stayed at DuPont for 12 years. And then after that, I really was ready for other opportunities. So when I left DuPont, I worked for 3 companies where I really got specialized in startups. You know,
Mhm.
we never had this before. We didn't have this meaning of saying startup is small companies, you know, incubator. Startup at that time was launch of big, you know, or either I launched a very prestigious brand in Brazil or Latin America, or I did the startup of a big, you know, like a big mall in Brazil. Like we the equivalent could be the launch that we had, I think, 3 years ago in New York, Hudson Yards. No, when we did the launch of that neighborhood, oh, was
Yeah.
a very big thing. Not only a mall, you know, was an entertainment place. It
Mhm.
was more or less the launch that I did for Shopping Leblon in Rio, which is the most prestigious city in Brazil. And then I brought, I support the startup of Missoni, another Italian brand in Brazil, and also Natuzzi brand, a furniture and design brand that established their business in Brazil. So you know, more and more, I really believe it. You know, that I could, you know, move forward for other challenges, and you know, it worked. But really, when we talk about that like that, Bonnie, it looks like very easy, but you know, so many challenges, so many steps, and you know,
Yes. There's no, as a business owner myself, you know, there's not one business that I've ever seen that was easy. And so when you're trying to build it and run it, and these are, you know, not like, it sounds like your startups are not like our startups where you start in your garage, but it's like, you know, where you've had very significant startups with major brands, and that's definitely a hard thing to do. Which, what
yeah.
great experience for being on boards, which is how we, you know, got together.
Yes, yes. Now I have a seat in one board. It's a non-profit one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hospital called Aacd.
Yes.
It's a hospital that's specialized for people that get like injuries, like car injuries, or have some mechanical motor injuries
Mm-hmm.
brought by neuro deficiencies. So we have either the hospital that operates people, but also a very big recovery department, you know, area to support people with this recovering, or you know, kids that you know they are born with some mobility problems. So we support not only them but their family, also with psychological support, you know, therapy support.
That's great.
It's a non-profit, yeah.
Mhm. Yes, well, I can see you being, you know, with your experience, you're going to be great for
Mhm.
both nonprofits and the corporate boards, and I'm sure
Yeah,
you'll be on more corporate boards soon. So
yeah, but that
tell me about the
let me
two. Go ahead.
yeah, but let me just explain, you know, there's a very important meaning for myself of being part of this board, because when I was 11, I had a very severe car accident.
Oh,
I was in my uncle's car. My parents' car were just behind. I exchanged places with my cousin, you know, for to chat, etc. And my uncle's car had a very severe car, and I was really very badly injured. I had fractured legs, 2 fracture exposure in the 2 legs.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had like a cardiacal, stop, break. Went to the therapy, and it took me like 6 months to recover. At that
Wow,
time,
Monica,
I
I had
had to.
no idea.
Yeah, at that time, I had to stop ballet, not even
Yes.
thinking if I was able to be back.
I'm so surprised you are able to. Wow.
Yes, I was able with a lot of, inner strength, with a lot of internal work. It was not easy, because I was a teenager, and
Right.
at that time, when you have, like experience like that, it's very, very, very hard. But,
And working through a lot of pain.
a lot of pain. And my uncle, unfortunately, he died.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
And
Emotional and physical pain.
a physical pain. But, to make this experience, very valid, and this explains a lot of why I am so resilient for many things. I took this very painful experience as a way to make strengths out of myself,
Yes.
to see the best of the experience and never look back, or better, look back, but have the experience that I bring for that.
Yes.
And I think that this I wouldn't have been the same person as I am without having this painful experience.
Well,
So
I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you for sharing that, because we didn't talk about that ahead of time. And so I'm a little blown away, and I'm proud of you for what you did. That takes a lot of courage and just, like you said, a lot of strength, inner strength, to fight through something like that. But, one of the things, I do a lot of leadership work, and one of the things that I say often is resistance is what makes us stronger. And so, whether that's a physical pain that we're having to work through, or, just like a startup, just that mental toughness, all of that. I was going to ask you what you had learned about leadership from ballet. And then, but this is even stronger, I think. But I would also like to hear what you've learned from ballet.
Well, ballet, as you have to really like so much, the art of ballet,
Yes.
to pursue. I'm not even saying that professionally, but even by practicing, by accepting, your limitations, etc. You really have to be a very strong and resilient people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about, practicing and work, the connection of your body with your mind and your soul, because it's an art.
Yes.
And by doing that, each time, each day, each class, you have to believe that you can be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Probably it's not enough to be a prima ballerina, but it's not important. And also to learn what ballet, what the rituals, what all the things you have to follow a very strict a routine. What you can take from this to any other thing of your life, for business, for your day by day, and also for your health.
Yes. Well,
So,
I hear so many leadership things in what you're saying. So there's the self-discipline, there's the self-awareness, there's, just being in tune with the culture of what you're trying to do. So there's so much that's a lot. We could probably do a whole show just on that.
Yes, and also that you have to accept that you are really a multitask person. Because to be a very good ballerina, you have to understand about music. You have to understand about the body, about the mechanical movements, you know. You have to understand about physiotherapy and strengths, the other exercises you have to practice to make you a better in ballet. And you have to understand about art, you know, because you have the interpretation part.
Yes.
So you have to be a complete. So nowadays, one of my favorite things, you know, is to follow those wonderful ballet dancers, boys, girls, etc. They are fantastic now because they have more opportunities, they have more information, and it's amazing, you know, what they do now in terms of leaps of yeah.
And the other piece that you said there was knowing your own sort of strengths and limitations, you know, and that's another thing that you can pull forward in leadership, I'm sure, is like you got to know what you don't know and what you can and cannot do by yourself. And, you know, we can't do everything.
Yeah, and also because
I'll give you a little example. So I have a property where I like to do I have 9 acres. And so I'm always planting trees and doing stuff like that. And I inevitably try to do it myself. And so I was talking because I grew up on a farm. And so my brother and I were talking yesterday, and we were saying how we over and over again end up getting into projects that take us like 3 times longer because we insist on trying to do it ourselves. Rather than bringing in a professional. But so, you know, like just knowing your limitations, like, you know, I think I'm probably better at work at knowing my limitations than I am, you know, out in nature. But I think that's an important part of leadership.
Yes. And in business life, you also have to understand that you have a lot of limitations. Yes. Especially because in many times you work for different segments, different industries. So in many cases, when you heritage a team, you know, it's so important that we respect and value the knowledge that these people brings, because in many times you can bring, you know, like a managerial, like a business expertise, but the technical, the route to market, the go to market, probably they certainly know much more than you do. Yes. And you learn a lot with them too.
That's right. It's so important to bring in the right people, get them in the right places, both internal and external, whether they're vendors or employees. You know, you've got to have the right people around you with the right skills and knowledge.
Yes.
Today's podcast is brought to you by EDA, a human capital firm that provides leadership development for your top of the house executives. One of our services is assessment and selection. Whether you're hiring, promoting, or developing your talent, the right assessments can provide much needed insight. They reduce bad hires and help you identify key areas of strengths as well as development needs. If you're interested in learning more about our assessment and selection programs for your organization, please reach out at www.executivedevelopment.com. So let's talk a little bit more, because I want to really get to one of the hardest things you've been through. But you spent like 8 years as country manager at Swarovski.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yes, almost 10 years leading Swarovski professional in Latin America.
That's fantastic. So I'm sure you did a lot of leadership work there. And is that what sets you up for what you're doing now? Like, how did you make the transition to being the dean of these 2 universities?
Yeah. I explained to you, but you know, having the opportunity to lead Swarovski professional for almost 10 years in Brazil and also in many of other countries of Latin gave me, you know, gave me the feeling, you know, that you can either work with the retail luxury market and also develop countries in development like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and many others. So it was a very, very rewarding experience, you know, because we also used to handle the B2B and there's a lot of small business in these countries, done
Yes.
by small companies or even individual people. And I had a opportunity, to visit many small cities, countries that that are just around the corner. And I used to go more to Europe or to US or to Asia, and I had the opportunity to know much more, the region that I live.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that my role, my example of women, here in Latam is even more significant than is my role for other countries that are much more developed. So
right, that's right. And we need young women and to look and to see you just like you saw the women who were successful in their careers when were early in your career. But how did you how did you move to the university from the business?
yes, I explained to you. As I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, I was the first of my family to have the opportunity to go to a university. And since then, I never stopped studying, or either supported by the company I used to work for, or even, financing by myself. So I had the opportunity to do the MBA through University of Pittsburgh, supported by DuPont, and also by other companies that I worked, but I also invested a lot. So after that, I went I did one program at Harvard. Then I went to Stanford. And last time I went to Harvard again. I went to Singularity University and many other. I also did a Swarovski Academy in Aacd University in England.
That would be the internal leadership
Program.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And just for those who speak English, the word that she said was Singularity University, just for clarification.
Yeah, Singularity.
Yes.
And for me, to be in a university is one of the places that I like the most of being, because I think that is inside of these institutions that the future happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The future is being built now inside of these big hubs.
That is
and
true.
I really have a passion for that.
Yes.
So when you get older, when you do a lot of things, when you have your, savings, I'm not a person that, even though I have worked for luxury market for so many years, I'm not a heavy consumer. No. So when you have some things settled in your life, I think you have to have courage, to give the next step. And this next step was really to put together, my purpose and the work and the contribution that I really wanted to keep doing.
That's fantastic.
So it's not that I don't like, luxury or consumer goods or anything, but I think that at this time, at this stage of my life, in a country like the one that I live, to contribute for education has a much bigger meaning than if I was in other companies. So it's more about what they need from myself instead of what I want to do.
Yes, it's a purpose. It's your life has meaning.
Yes.
Right.
So one of Anima's education owners, Daniel Castanho, he says, he's the chairman of the board now, and he says, you really love what you do when every day you don't call this work.
Yes, that's
like
right. Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way because my life's work is about leadership, and I never feel like I'm well, I wouldn't say never. I almost never feel like it's work because I love it so much. And so, I would just encourage anyone listening to find your passion, and then, the hours and the difficulties, they don't feel as difficult because you're doing something that really matters, or you at least feel like you can get through them.
Yes.
And speaking of getting through, so that the one thing I really wanted to get to is, we talked about what is one of the hardest things that you've been through on this path. And, you mentioned as we were preparing for this, that it was actually the pandemic that we're in right now. And still, it's still pretty heavy in Brazil. And so while it's lightening up in some parts of the world, it's not everywhere. And so I'd like for you just to talk about, what's been really the hardest part of this, and how have you gotten through it?
Well, I was hired at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, goodness.
So, yes, I was already talking, to the leadership of Anima, because I knew them like since 3 years ago. So, but I couldn't. I was not ready to leave Swarovski at that time. I had some other deliverables, and I wouldn't leave the company that helped me so much.
Yes.
So it was something that we incubate, this movement.
Yeah.
And only after, I knew that, I had, developed my succession, that the company also needed to stay, and without my support, that I took this decision. And this happened at this pandemic period. So I was hired at the end of April, the last interviews I did, by phone, by Skype, and I was officially introduced to the entire company virtually.
Wow. And at this point, for those who don't remember, we didn't know how long this was going to go on. We didn't know if it was going to be a couple of months or if this was a really big deal. And so that had to be sort of a shock. But I do want to make a quick note. I love that you ended your last job well. You stayed, you finished the major projects that you were working on, and you built a good succession plan. I mean, what an excellent way to leave an organization, so that you left them in good shape.
I owe a lot to them.
Yes.
And I really, between these 9 to 10 years, I cannot separate a lot of what I got was from the managing director of Swarovski or was from Mônica.
Mm-hmm.
During this period, I was nominated by Forbes to be considered one of the 40 most powerful women in Brazil.
That's amazing.
So, what if I was not working for Swarovski at that time? I don't know if I had been nominated. Honestly, I think that I had the opportunity to do a very good job, but it's only because they gave me this opportunity. So
Wonderful.
My advice for people, sometimes opportunities happen, and in my life also happened a lot of nice invitations and opportunities, but if I always try it, to reflect about, it cannot be only good for me. It has to be good for everybody. And if I promise to deliver someone, or to some organization, I have to honor that.
Yes, yeah, that's fantastic advice. Great. It just speaks of character and caring about people beside yourself. Some people get so wrapped up in their career that they don't care about the companies who help them get to where they are, and all the, and I know companies are made up of people. And so it's the people that were there who helped you to get to where you are, and you remember that. And I think that's fantastic.
And you never know the day of tomorrow.
That's true.
Probably you need some recommendation, probably. So I am in contact with all the Mr. Natuzzi, Marcos Swarovski, all my bosses. All after that is even better, because then they became my friends.
Yes, of course, because there's mutual respect.
Yes, and the same with my team. my former teams.
Yes, fantastic. So then you get here and now you're being introduced virtually, and you're still virtual because Brazil's still going through some pretty big struggles with the pandemic.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it's a challenge inside of a challenge, because by being, by taking over a very important leadership position in a company, from a segment that even though you really love, is your passion, you don't have previous experience, it's something very challenging. So I did all my onboarding, the entire onboarding, virtually, and only by July last year, we started to have some presentiality. Okay. But till now, I never met my boss.
Oh, goodness.
Because he lives, yes, because he lives in another state.
Yes.
And we are not allowed to travel, or really, not that we are
over a year.
We are not, it's not recommended that we travel, fly, etc. So it's been amazing because he has been one of my biggest mentors besides being my boss. And I never had physically in front of him.
That is amazing.
And another thing that helped not only my onboarding, but the development of my leadership, the development of my team, etc., was because I had similar experience in the other companies I worked for. So I since '94, I used to be or part or have a remote team. Because when I joined DuPont, I had my South American team, and I was part of the global communications team.
Yeah, so that for part, me, you knew how to do that.
Yes, I knew how to manage remote things.
Yes.
And to how to live, this flame, this warmth between a remote thing. And this I think I use it a lot. I try to be as closer as possible of this big team. Now almost 5,000 people in my direct team. I use a lot of my time doing, group meetings, happy hours, just listening, open listening sessions in order to understand what are their needs, and a lot also, investment in support of our mental health. Everybody, yes, not only them, my mental health, our leadership mental health, everybody's, our students' mental health.
Yes, because it has been a struggle for many with the mental health issues. Probably more than any of us have ever seen, as you mentioned. What has been the hardest part? Was it the not, switching industries basically, or the isolation? Like what do you feel like was the hardest?
I think the hardest was to lead with uncertainty, because since the second half of March, nobody knows. Nobody, even who has a crystal ball, knows what's gonna happen the next 15 days. Not even now. For you guys that live in US, I think it's much easier, and I feel happy for you, because I hope that one day, the same situation will be happening here in Brazil and in South America, Latin America. But to lead with uncertainty is very difficult, and you have to accept vulnerability.
It is very difficult.
The others also know that despite you are very strong, resilient, you also don't know what's going to happen in
That's right. There's no precedent. We can't go back and find an example of how to get through this. And you bring up this great point about uncertainty, because leading during uncertainty is extremely difficult. Like we talk about sort of like leading through a fog.
Yes.
It's like you can't see what's on the other side, and you don't know where the road is. And so you're picking a path and trying to make it through. And then like for you're bringing all these people with you. So it is a lot of responsibility. How did you get yourself through it to this point?
Well, like I said, with a lot of trying to be as close as possible of the people, trying to tell 100% of true things, if I didn't know what was going to happen, either if it's the professors or the students or the employees or the investors, I think that we were the most open as possible, and we got rewarded by that, because we were able to maintain our level of students. We never stopped it took us 2 days to turn the key from presential to digital and make the students start having the classes at Zoom and etc.
2 days.
2 days, yes, because
that's so impressive. Let's just reflect here. We're talking about over how many professors?
In the entire Anima, it was more than 3,000 professors.
3,000 professors, over 100,000 students, and you're able to go digital in 2 days.
Yes.
That's amazing.
This also because our level of investment in the digitation was very high, more than 4 years ago.
So you were more prepared probably than a lot of organizations and universities.
Much more than other organizations. We used to have already squads, projects. So digital for us was part. But it was not easy because, many of our students didn't have, how to pay for a internet service or for a laptop. So we have to lend a lot of those stuffs to them.
Yes.
For the ones that are more vulnerable, even financially speaking.
Right.
So we landed, I think that more than 2,000 laptops.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes.
Well, as we're sort of coming to the end of our time here, tell me what you would give advice to others, just for leadership and maybe also just getting through this pandemic. Like, what is your advice looking back over your own career and history, and what would you like to share?
I think what I would like to share for the young generation, for the same generation as mine, or for the older generation, the more important is to see the journey, the entire journey. Because in many takes, we take some decisions just thinking about, this is the best next step, and my income will double. I'm just kidding, because there is no income doubling nowadays, but but reflect about the entire journey. Is really the right step, thinking about all the road, or is something that probably you can regret. I did some wrong decisions also in my life.
Absolutely. I mean, every leader has made wrong decisions. I'm glad you brought that up.
So this is my advice, and I put all myself available for everybody that listens this podcast, because I really I was mentoring. I had the opportunity to feel mentee by many people, and one of my responsibilities is also to support people to see the things in a more clear way. So I
Yes.
have to thank you so much, Bonnie, for this invitation.
Oh, I'm so glad
It's
you're
really a
here. I
privilege.
just want to encourage everyone, go to LinkedIn and follow Monica because, what a leader, and you're doing amazing things. And I love your advice about, making sure that your life means more than just the next step or more money, but really having a purpose to it. So I appreciate you being on the program. Thank you very much. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Have a great rest of your
Bye-bye.
day. And thank you for joining Real Life, Real Leaders. A special thank you to our listeners for taking time to tune in to this week's Real Life, Real Leaders podcast. We hope today's story inspired you. Check out previous episodes on the podcast to hear from more industry leaders, and check back next week as we speak to another leader and hear his or her great stories of triumphs and messy struggles. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate, subscribe, and share. I'm Bonnie Hageman, and I look forward to sharing more with you next week.